The Caribbean nation of Cuba finds itself gripped by a severe humanitarian crisis, intensifying under the relentless pressure of United States economic sanctions. At the same time, former President Donald Trump has openly discussed his fantasies of taking over the island nation, stating he could do what I want with it, viewing the weakening of the Cuban state as a direct opportunity for American intervention. Speaking to journalists at the White House, President Trump explicitly hinted at a takeover of the socialist country. He declared, "I believe that I will have the honor of taking over Cuba." When pressed for clarification, he added that it would be in some form, either to liberate or take over. He emphasized his perceived authority over the island, stating, "I can do what I want with it if you want to know the truth." However, he did not elaborate on specific details of how such a takeover would occur. When asked whether a United States intervention in Cuba might resemble previous actions in Venezuela or Iran, President Trump remained vague, responding, "I cannot tell you that." Yet he confirmed that Cuban leadership was engaged in discussions with the United States. He characterized Cuba as a failed state, highlighting its economic vulnerabilities. They have no money, they have no oil, they have nothing. They have nice land. It is a beautiful island. The former president also described the Cuban leadership as violent. These provocative remarks were made amidst ongoing bilateral talks between the United States and Cuba, occurring concurrently with a deepening economic crisis on the island. This crisis has been significantly exacerbated by a United States oil blockade implemented following the arrest of former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Reports from the New York Times, citing 4 individuals familiar with the negotiations, indicate that the removal of Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel is a central objective for the United States in these ongoing discussions. American negotiators have reportedly signaled to their Cuban counterparts that Diaz-Canel must step down. Prior to these developments, after the removal of Maduro and escalating tensions with Iran, Trump had openly speculated that Cuba would be next in line for United States action. The island's distress is profoundly visible in its failing infrastructure. Just recently, Cuba experienced another nationwide power outage, marking the first island-wide blackout since the start of the year. This follows an incident less than 2 weeks prior, where approximately 2/3 of the Caribbean nation was plunged into darkness. In a country of nearly 10 million inhabitants, the electricity grid frequently collapses entirely. Large portions of the socialist island state's outdated infrastructure are in a dismal condition, leading to frequent power plant shutdowns and makeshift repairs. Power outages have become an unwelcome part of daily life for Cubans. The Cuban government attributes this profound crisis to the United States trade embargo, which has been in place for over 60 years. Relations between Havana and Washington have been severely strained ever since the socialist revolution led by Fidel Castro in 1959. The situation has intensified further with recent tensions. For months now, Cuba has received no oil from Venezuela, a critical supplier, because President Trump ordered a complete blockade on sanctioned oil tankers carrying deliveries from the South American ally. Cuba, however, is critically dependent on oil for its electricity supply, making the blockade devastating for its energy sector. Havana unequivocally accuses the United States of deliberately attempting to instigate a humanitarian catastrophe in the Caribbean nation. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno RodrA-guez recently stated that the alleged threat to United States national security is merely a pretext. He characterized this aggressive escalation as a collective, merciless punishment of the Cuban people, asserting that Cuba poses no threat to the United States or any other country. Even within the United States Congress, there are vocal critics of the ongoing blockade. Democratic Representative Delia C. Ramirez wrote, "Cuba is affected by a nationwide collapse of the electricity grid. The unforgivable blockade by the United States has blocked Cubans' access to health care, safe food, drinking water, and security." Her statement underscores the growing concern among some American lawmakers regarding the humanitarian impact of these policies. The future of Cuba, caught between a debilitating crisis and the rhetoric of foreign intervention, remains highly uncertain. What's your take on Trump's Cuba Takeover amid humanitarian crisis? Share your view in the comments. Do you think this will matter in the next news cycle? This video was generated using artificial intelligence.